So how's it going, my comics at Army? We're here today with Gary Scott Beatty, the writer of Strange Horror. How you doing?
I'm doing great. It's a beautiful day today.
Yeah. So is Strange Horror your first comic book ever?
Oh hell no, I'm an old man. I've been doing this a long time. Strange Horror is up on Kickstarter right now. Strange Horror #1. You can get there at strangehorror.com. But I've had that website and other books for a long time. In the I color and letter for the industry. I was coloring for Caliber Comics back in the day. Um, yeah, I've been around for a long time, dude. Should we start with that history stuff?
I mean, we can do it a little later if you want.
All right, it's up to you. You tell me where to go with this whole thing.
Yeah. So what is the elevator pitch on Strange Horror?
Oh, hell if I know, but it is 80 pages of a square bound 80-page book. I'm working with illustrators that I've wanted to work with for a long time. I just got off. I had just gotten off a free webcomic on Webtoons called Gods of Aazurn, Aazurn, and I've been doing that for a while, just trying to build up more of an audience. Not sure whether that worked or not, but it sure did help me with my drawing chops because I'm also an illustrator. And getting off of that, I think, oh, I really need to get something in print. And I've done several Kickstarters, several successful, couple not successful. And I thought, well, why don't I just ask these illustrators that I know, these people I know, and see if they'll work with me. And lo and behold, I got Vince Locke, the Sandman artist Vince Locke, who I've known from way back in the '90s, in his Caliber days, his early Caliber days in the early '90s. Guess that would be the late '80s also. From conventions, and he said, yeah. So he's doing a Cinderella story with me, Cinderella, Daughter of the Witch. Nick Palauco from the Creeps magazine. Are you familiar with the Creeps magazine? It's indie, but it's done in the style of the Warren magazines, like Creepy and Eerie from
Okay.
the '70s. And my favorite artist from that, Nick Palauco, just has this beautiful line quality that's very much like the old Warren illustrators. And yeah, he said he would work with me. So we've got a werewolf story going in there called Warwolf. And then Amanda Rachels, who I know from conventions, works with, is known for Vicious Circus, Evil Clowns. And she's got a story in there with me. Andy Bennett is an old, a lot of people know him, but I'm a friend of his from the Caliber days and from conventions. We got a full length paranormal investigator story, kind of like Kolchak, the Night Stalker, called The Devouring. And then Bill Bryan, who indie people might know from way back doing the Dark Oz series, is doing a story with me. It's a H.P. Lovecraft styled thing, the Music of Zon, very much like the Lovecraft short story, I think the Music of Eric Zahn, and but it's done in '70s punk.
Mm.
So that's a nice, an interesting twist on that kind of story. And it's all together in this Strange Horror #1 at strangehorror.com. It's on Kickstarter now through the 14th, I believe it is.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was telling you before we started, you let me flip through the digital copy, and it's awesome. I need to go back. Like everything that I seen was pretty good.
Oh, thank you. I do think through it a lot. Like we were talking a little while ago, I'm a writer, but I'm also an illustrator. I try to write in a way where the illustrations are really interesting. So even if somebody is just flipping through it to look at the artwork, there's things for them to see. I don't like to have a bunch of people talking to each other all the time. There's got to be something going on.
Yeah.
Even though I am a writer and I do get kind of wordy, there is a lot to read in the stuff that I do. I do like to give a lot of good visuals. And besides, then when you're talking about it, you have visuals to show to people because you can't exactly sit down and read them. Read them the words. You got to have something to show them. It is a comic book.
Yep. Oh, are you going to any conventions this year?
You know, I do like 3 conventions a year close to me here in Michigan. I used to do a lot of conventions early on in the 90s and the 2000s. And frankly, I just make more money if I'm working at home than going to conventions. The main thing is I have all kinds of buddies that go to conventions, and everybody that's working in strange horror with me, they all, I knew them all from conventions. But I don't meet my target market when I'm at conventions. I don't do Iron Man.
Yeah.
I do scary stuff. And I'll talk to people as they're walking by. Hey, do you like scary stuff? And they'll grin, but then you just know, no, they're here for Captain America, and no, I don't do that stuff. So yeah, I can reach my target market a lot better through things like the free webcomic, where I could just show off my chops and do chapter stories for them, and get them interested that way. So I really haven't done major conventions for a long time.
Okay. Where can they read the webcomic if they want?
Oh, that's on Webtoons. Search for Gods of Aazurn. That's Aazurn. And that's absolutely free. It's 66 chapters, beginning, middle, and an end. It's cosmic horror. It just goes everywhere. It's a little stream of consciousness for me, because you can imagine somebody who's trying to keep up some kind of schedule, writing chapters, like a chapter a week and that kind of thing. So I do a chapter a week for so long, and then I just kick back exhausted for a little bit, and then I go in and do a chapter a week for a little longer. It's you really got to admire people who do that all the time for a living, because that's a hard way to go. But there's really some clever stuff in there, and some of my best writings also at Gods of Aazurn.
Is there a way to monetize like a webtoon or anything?
If somebody finds some way to monetize working in comics in the first place, I wish they'd let me know.
Yeah.
Because, all us people and it is my full-time job producing publications. That's what I do. I've got a local magazine, community events kind of magazine that I do here in Muskegon, Michigan, for Muskegon County. I color and letter for the industry. And then I do my own books, and all of my income comes right from that. And yeah, it's a tough way to go. You really have to love it in order to devote time to it. And like any artistic endeavor, you can't go into it thinking that you're gonna do the thing that makes a lot of money, because if you just keep following the latest trend, you're never really going to get anywhere. Think about the people that you like in comics. They're people that did their own thing and used their own voice. And when they use their own voice, people look at it and go, oh, that's different. That's interesting. You can't necessarily get there by following what's new and just going back and forth with it. So yeah, I haven't done that. But if you find out how to make money doing this, you let me know, because I would like to make way more.
Right. Let's see. Do you plan on continuing Strange Horror?
Well, I hope so. We reached our funding goal on Kickstarter for Strange Horror. We reached it for Strange Horror #1 in 11 hours.
Nice.
Yeah, so I'm just waiting to see how many people we actually get interested in it, and if it looks like it's going to work, I'm just going to keep going with it. But that first book is the one that's just going to tell me. It's short stories in it, so there's nothing else really to buy. I'm not going to put something in there that leads into another book. I really don't like people doing that. If you're gonna write short stories, write short stories. And if I like them, I will buy book 2, 3, 4, whatever. But I have had several series in the past, though. People might remember IndieComics magazine. I did 10 of those. Those were, I think I might have one down here. There we go. IndieComics magazine were 64 pages, and this was an anthology kind of thing too. I ended up doing 10 of these and 2 IndieComics horrors, and this is back in the days where you go through Diamond. This went through Diamond. Some great black and white artwork. Worked with a bunch of great people. Did my own stuff in it too. That took off, and that did well until it didn't. And then this one, number 1, was just reprinted by Source Point Press. Sorry, Source Point Press. Just reprinted this last year with a different cover. This is the original printing I did years ago, and this is the story of a comic shop owner that's illustrated by Aaron Warner. People might know Aaron Warner. He did that Adventures of Aaron series. If you do indie comics, you know Adventures of Aaron. But it's the story of a comic shop owner, not done in a comedic way, but done in a dramatic way. And a reviewer actually said this brought him to tears. So, yeah.
In a good way, or?
Oh, that's a good question. No, it didn't suck so much. It brought him to tears. It brought him to just because of the dramatic story in it.
Okay.
And probably still find these in comic shops because, like I say, Source Point Press just reprinted this last year. They said it was an award-winning story, but I haven't won any awards for it. Oh, I did get a Zurich grant to print this, though. Do you remember what the Zurich grant was?
No.
XERIC. They gave out grants to young comic book publishers who were just doing their first books, and to get them going. I guess they finally figured that the internet was big enough now that they didn't need to actually give people money to print books, that people would find them online, and I'm sure they're right at this point. But yeah, I got somebody wrote me a check to publish that thing. so that's a good feeling.
Do you think comics are ever going to go out of print and go all digital?
I just look at what I do myself. I read stuff on my phone. I like reading stuff on my big screen on my computer because I'm an old guy, so my vision might be going a little more. But I just like having the big screen to read type stuff on. And I buy physical books. I buy hardcover books of collections. I buy floppies. I buy everything right now. So if I'm looking at what I do, I pretty much buy everything. I think there's a place for all of it, actually. Like I say, I'm on Webtoons. I got some favorite Webtoons things that I follow. I just think, stories can be told in all kinds of different formats. It's all just words and pictures. I can admit, it's kind of the only thing that the only format I've ever liked on my phone, though, has been Webtoons, because that flip up a format that they have, that is so cool for doing on a phone. And people design them on phones so the type is big enough to always be read. And Webtoons is just the way. I wish everybody did that flip up, scroll up format for reading on your phone, because that is by far the best way I've found to read on a phone. And then artists can have fun with it too. They can have, you'll be scrolling up and they'll give you this like never-ending scroll illustration that just goes on and on and on. I've done some of that myself.
I'm going to check out Webtoons right after we're done with this interview.
Oh, all right. Gods of Aazurn, Aazurn.
Okay. So I like asking everybody this. Dead or alive, who would you like to make a comic book with?
Oh, I'm doing it. I won't tell you who said no, because I did contact a couple of people who are actually retired now. When you're asking people that you knew on the convention circuit in the late 80s and early 90s, you're bound to wind up with some people that just aren't doing it anymore. And I won't tell you who said no, but I got Vince Locke in there, so that I figure that's a key artist to land, somebody from the Sandman.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm working with people I want to work with. I really am. I asked them, and they said yes, and I'll keep going with that too.
Okay. How much has the comic industry changed from the late 90s, well, late 80s, early 90s?
Oh wow. Yeah, going to conventions is the main thing that's changed. Even with all the innovation of the ways to read and the ways to buy and all that, the biggest difference is conventions. You used to be able to go to a convention and turn books around that nobody knew anything about, because everybody was coming out of the black and white explosion in the 80s. Everybody was real interested in what the next big thing was going to be, and everybody was real interested in buying and reading new stuff. You didn't have to be Superman in order to sell a book at a convention. And conventions have really really changed. If I was to do any conventions, they'd have to be small conventions, because basically I need to explain what I do to people. And if people are just going to walk by and looking for Wolverine, they're not going to stop at my table in the first place. I remember going to conventions. Oh, now I'm sounding like an old guy. This is good that I'm in a rocking chair. Look, I could do the old guy thing. I remember when I was going to conventions. No, really. I remember when there was like two main cosplay groups at conventions, at the conventions I went to. I go to a big one in Chicago, to Chicago Comic-Con, and there'd be one group of 5 people that always did X-Men. And they looked good and they had good costumes and stuff. But today, how many groups of people are doing the cosplay thing, because it was more about the books, it was more about reading and illustrating. And that's the main difference in all of those years. Doesn't matter how you read the darn things. You can read them any way you want to.
All right. What advice would you have for new creators out there?
Oh, become an engineer or something. Work for get a better job. The job market is really good right now. You really should be able to land something that is more that pays well better than comics, and then do comics later on. You can do both. It's okay to do both. But yeah, being an artist or a writer is just not really a very good career path right now. It really isn't. I'm sorry, if you wanted, follow your dream, whatever. But it'd be a lot better to be a plumber and then go home at night and write and draw comics until you're really, really good at it, and then get hired to write and draw comics. Because plumbers make really good money, and we need plumbers out there. We do.
Is there anything you want to say before we go?
Oh, before we go, well, I do have Caliber books. Gary Reed, before he died, the guy who did Caliber, who I was following in those late 80s, actually asked me to come on with my books before he passed on in the new Caliber. Worlds has 3 different stories in it, including Jazz Cool Birth is that Zurich winner, and Jazz Midnight is cool. It's got illustrations by me inspired by 50s album cover design, and that's about a jazz club in the 50s. And then Wounds is a straight up zombie horror story illustrated by me also. But mainly go to strangehorror.com to support Strange Horror #1 on Kickstarter right now, because that's the new good thing.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to come talk with me.
All right. Well, thanks for talking with me. Have a great weekend.
What? You mean you haven't subscribed to Comicchatauthority? Oh, come on. Subscribe already. What are you waiting for? It's no big deal. Like, man, don't forget to tell him to hit that like button. Yeah, that too. Just subscribe.